The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
You are now logged into WarUp on the WPIAL, featuring your hosts Greg Warnock and Jeff Upson. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
Welcome into a brand new edition of WarUp on the WPIAL. Greg Warnock alongside Jeff Upson, recapping the wrestling action from this past weekend, plus getting you set for a whole new week of wrestling. And, you know, we have the last week of section wrestling coming up team-wise. Next weekend is the section championships. Weekend after that is WPIAL championships.
It's hard to believe, man. I just can't believe it. Like, where has the time gone? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, pretty crazy. We're in the middle of January already and just 1 week away from getting into postseason action. But that's where we are, and should be a lot of fun to see how it all breaks down. We'll talk a lot about some of the teams here coming up in just a little bit. But individual-wise, still a couple of tournaments over this past weekend. The debut of the Mid Winter Mayhem at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. We ended up live streaming it for you. What did you think of the tournament overall?
I thought it was great for a first-year tournament. Eric Knopfsnyder and I talked about that with Paul Myers, and I thought it was a great tournament. A lot of good competition, a lot of good mix of AA, AAA from all across the state, which is really neat to see. Guys from Pocono Mountain to all the way up to Cranberry. You know, that's pretty cool. So I thought it was a great tournament, and the WPIAL did well, right? North Allegheny did pretty decently. I thought it was a good tournament.
What are I know you said Paul Myers is the one that ran this tournament. What are some of his goals as he goes into year two for this one?
You know, I don't know. Eric Knopfsnyder and I actually had him on our podcast, PA Power Podcast, and he talked a little bit about that. So I won't give too much away. You'll have to go back and listen to that podcast. But no, it was he. You know, I think he wants to grow it into a nice little. You know, as he mentioned, it's a dual focus season in January, early January. So I think he wanted to get some teams some more individual tournaments. Yeah, I don't know what exactly the goal is, but clearly I think this is a success, so I think we'll see it again.
Looking at some of the results, at 106 pounds in all WPIAL final, Nick Gorman of North Allegheny, he was your winner, and he won by fall over Troy Homan of Penn Trafford.
Yeah, and that was a big win for Nick. Those two were ranked kind of right next to each other in the WPIAL and also in the state, so very close between these two. And a match that I think we'll probably see again. But Gorman, I thought, he's just been wrestling lights out, man. He from the start to finish, he's been wrestling really, really well this season. So big win and good win for him.
120 pounds, Dylan Coy of North Allegheny. He wins the title by fall in the finals as well.
Yeah, and that was an interesting weight because it was a nice – you had a couple good guys from AA there and AAA there. He pinned Carter Stanley from Cranberry in the finals, but Jeffrey Russell from Shippensburg out of District 3 was there. He's a state qualifier from last year, so good showing by Dylan.
Also placing in this one was Bose Chisco, Penn Trafford. He finished in 6th place. 138 pounds, another WPIAL all-final. Max Stediford of North Allegheny beats Kenny Dushek of Freedom 7-2.
Yeah, and I was high on Kenny Dushek coming into this tournament. I thought this was going to be a good showing for him because you had Tony Salopek from West Mifflin in this weight as well. 38 was loaded. Chase Barlow from Strathaven was there. Salopek ends up taking 3rd, but the big news here was Stediford. He really controlled that match. It wasn't it was a 7-2 match, and he looked like he was in control the whole time. So, really good showing for Stediford. As I mentioned, man, these North Allegheny Tigers are just I'm excited to see what their future holds because they return a lot of guys, and they've just been wrestling lights out.
Yeah, 145 pounds, Freddie Junko of North Allegheny. He finishes in 4th place. 152, Grant McKay. He finishes in 2nd place. He ends up losing by fall to returning state champion Ed Scott from DuBois.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a classic case of a senior against a freshman, man. Ed Scott, he can pin you from a lot of different ways, and he's not afraid to mix it up a little bit. Obviously getting that fall in the first period, but I thought Grant had a great tournament. He beat Alec Supanik from North Star in the semifinals. It was a really close match, but McKay showed a lot of poise for a freshman. And, it's nice to get your hands on a state champion, whether it was for a minute and 22 or not. I think it's going to make him better.
160 and 170, a pair of West Mifflin guys medal. Gavin Rosso finishes in 4th place. Frank Guzzi finishes in 3rd place. But the story of 170 was Trent Schulteis of Freedom. He finishes in 1st place by major decision over Ethan Marcosi of Bishop McCourt. Is Schulteis back to form yet?
I want to say he is, but I definitely got to see a little bit more out of him at 170. I would say he's trending in the right direction. That's for sure. There's no doubt about that. I mean, he comes in here and beats a very tough Ethan Marcosi from Bishop McCourt, and he does it in pretty dominating fashion, as you mentioned, 10-1. So I think Schulteis is definitely going in the right direction. We got to see a little bit more consistency out of him. We got to see how he starts gearing up for the individual postseason. But I was also impressed with Frank Guzzi as well. I think he's a guy who's kind of under the radar, but I think he had a good showing here.
195, Nick Marcinelli of North Allegheny. He finishes in 2nd place in this one, and Howie Congdon of West Mifflin finishing in 4th place in the weight. Marcinelli, a tight one, a 1-0 loss.
Yeah, Eric Johnson is he's really tough, and I thought this was going to be a little bit closer. Marcinelli is a guy who I think is right on the cusp. 95 and the WPIAL is just stacked. You look at the guys there. I mean, obviously Luke Stout is the headliner there, but you have Cole Whiteman, you have Brandon Roskowski, you have Justin Kramer. It's a lot. So I think he needs to get these matches under his belt where he's trying to grind out wins. But Eric Johnson's a tough wrestler.
285, Ben Grafton of North Allegheny. He finishes in 2nd place, ends up losing by fall, though, in the finals to Marvin Beatty of Marion Center.
Yeah, Marvin Beatty's he's a very tough wrestler, returning state qualifier. Again, kind of like Marcinelli here, I think this is a good gauge for Ben Grafton, especially with all those injuries going on at heavyweight in the WPIAL with GMR Ramus and Stone Joseph.
Any updates on either one of those guys, by the way?
I don't. I think Stone maybe. I don't want to speculate, but I think it was something with his arm. But I don't know if it looked good or not. I don't think it looked good. GMR Ramus, he didn't wrestle this past weekend, so that's not good. But these are two critical guys to have coming into the postseason.
Yeah, speaking of Cannon McMillan, they wrestled at the Virginia Duels over this past weekend, and a couple of big teams that they're going to end up facing in the state tournament were there, and they dropped a pair of decisions. They lost to Erie Prep 34-27, and they also lost to Nazareth 40-17, sandwiched between 3 wins, of course, for Cannon McMillan, but that really shows you the barometer, because Cannon McMillan really is in the mix for a WPIAL title. Them, Seneca Valley, you have Waynesburg. So that gives you a barometer of where the WPIAL is in the state. Yeah,
and this was a very interesting match between Erie Cathedral and Camden Mac. There was a lot of tight matches, a lot of decisions, including at 106 where you had 2 top 5 ranked guys in the state. Jacob Van D, who at one time was number 1 in the state, he beat Jacob Halp. He beat him 4-2. That was a very tight match. But you had some other wins. Brandon Damey from Camden Mac was able to squeeze out a 6-4 win over Jacob Brumette. I thought there was a few matches where Camden Mac probably didn't want to give up bonus points, like at 52, Panero Johnson, Major Tanner O'Haley, and Blake Joseph got pinned by McLaurin from at 160 pounds, and then, of course, giving up the forfeit at heavyweight without GMR Ramus. That obviously hurt them.
Is that a match he would win, Ramos?
Yeah, I definitely think Hudson's not. He's not bad, but I think GMR Ramos definitely gets bonus there. So that changes the dynamic of the match. But I just think there was a few matches where Camden Mac probably would have liked to stop bonus points, and I think that ultimately giving up 6 points right off the bat without a heavyweight, you can't give up those bonus points.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But you take that away, Cannon McMillan wins that match. Even if he wins by decision, they still win 30-28. So even the match goes as is the rest of the way.
Yeah, and I do think at full strength, that's a different match. However, we're going to see. I mean, I don't know what the prognosis is on GMR Ramus. If he can't come back, then that's something they're going to have to deal with. If they're going to struggle if they're down a heavyweight. They're getting up 6 points. They may make it to Hershey, but they're going to have trouble.
I don't even know if they make it to. It depends on Stone Joseph as well. If they make it to Hershey, then at that point. But I don't know. I think without Ramos, they don't beat Waynesburg or Seneca Valley.
Yeah, I mean that's. I would be hard to argue with you there. That's a big loss to them.
For either way, I mean, if Joseph's out too, neither one of those teams, because they're all so close. And if they weren't all so close, then I would say, they may still be able to make it, but without one key member of the team, it's definitely hard to beat.
Especially because Seneca Valley and Waynesburg aren't the strongest at heavyweight, right? So that not only are you're losing a guy at a weight where it's pivotal that you get bonus points, but a potentially guy who's going to give up 6 is now getting 6, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's obviously a huge swing.
9 to 12 points.
Yeah, right.
You look at the Nazareth score. Is there room that they can make up there outside of obviously giving up the forfeit at 285?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some matches here that could have gone either way. Charlie Bunting at 106, he beat Jacob Halp 2-1. That was a really good win for Charlie as a freshman.
Where's he ranked out in the state?
Well, he was top 15, but he's going to jump up. District 11 is stacked at 106 pounds. C.J. Horvath. You got Connor Werner, returning state qualifier. You got Cale McKentry from Bethlehem Catholic. So they're really stacked. That's going to hurt the WPIAL in terms of the ranking here. There was a couple matches where I thought Cannon Mac shouldn't have given up bonus points, but it's just the way things are. Blake Joseph got pinned by Ryan Fairchild. That's a backup for Nazareth. Travis Stefanik was not in. I'm sorry, Nathan Stefanik. That's his brother, Travis. He graduated, and he's at Princeton. Nathan was not in there. Matt Furman gave up 6 points to Connor Hersig. And then, of course, Garrett Ninehouse had a tough 3-2 win over Drew Cleary, who's a returning state medalist, up like 5 weight classes from last year. So,
there's surprised that one was so close?
No, because Cleary's tough, and at 82, I mean, people don't always wrestle Garrett. People like to kind of turtle up against him. So I watched the match, but I think that it kind of went as expected. I'm sure Garrett obviously wanted to score more points. But I thought Jimmy Baxter came up huge. Jimmy Baxter had a great weekend. I'm impressed with the way he's wrestling. He got a fall over Blaine Wilson, which was huge. I thought that kind of would have been a toss-up match. But then that was negated when Nick Foster from Nazareth, he got a fall over Tyler Soul. So, this match, obviously, with a heavyweight in there, it can be a little bit different, but I still think Nazareth, man, they're a really tough squad.
And they're ranked number 1 in the state right now, so you can kind of just see where you're at. Making that points up is going to be a lot more difficult for Cannon Mac than it is against Erie Prep. You look at the Burgestown tournament, that featured a lot of AA schools, and your champion at 106 pounds, Chase Brandeborough, a freshman out of Carlinton, he dominated his way through with 4 falls, all in the first period as well, to win the championship. 113 pounds, Julian Moore of Fort Cherry, fresh off of his Tri-County championship, ends up winning the championship here at 113. At 120 pounds, Joey Fisher of South Park, he wins the title with a pair of decisions. A little bit tighter than you probably would have thought from Joey Fisher with Ambrose Bonney of Central Valley, but he wrestled a guy that I've been talking a lot about, Joey Senepal. He beat him 6-1 in the semifinals, so Senepal hanging with those upper echelon wrestlers, but Fisher wins the title.
I don't know if I don't know if I'd be surprised if Fisher goes down to 13. I wonder if he's descending down to 115 for postseason. He very well could, because 20 is kind of stacked, not only in the WPIAL but the state. So it'd be interesting to see if he's going down.
Might be a good decision. A guy who's probably going down to 120s at 126 for this tournament. Ryan Michaels of Elizabeth Forward, he wins the title, and he does it in overtime. 6-4 overtime win over Dylan Evans of Chartiers Valley. Yeah,
shout out Dylan Evans, man. He's a freshman stud, son of Bill Evans, and he hung in there with Ryan Michaels, obviously 6'4", and Michaels will be down at 120. He's just kind of wrestling up at 26. We saw Jackson Arrington from Forest Hills do the same thing this past weekend. I wouldn't be surprised to see a guy like Carter Dybert stay up at 20 until he goes down to the postseason. So not surprising to see Michaels up at 26, but he will be down at 20. Dylan Evans, man, he's going to be really fun to watch in the postseason. I can't wait to see him going against some other top competition.
132, Nate Yeagle of McGuffey finishes in second. to Cal Schofstel of Pottsville, 138 pounds. Cale Bakaizo of Thomas Jefferson, he had a big tournament, finishing in first place. He beats Parker Loria of Bethel Park in the quarterfinals. He beat Eddie Hune of Carlinton in the semifinals before beating Pottsville's Bryce Gonzalez in the final. Good tournament for Cale.
Yeah, I thought Cale had a great tournament here. Bryce Gonzalez is no slouch, so impressed to see him. And not only that, but look at the other place medalists here. So, I definitely think Cale is pretty happy. And I thought TJ overall wrestled really tough. I mean, they won the tournament by
Yeah, they ended up winning the team actually 211 to 190 was the total. McGuffey in third with 171. Burgestown right behind him with 166. So, but yeah, Thomas Jefferson was impressive throughout the entire tournament. At 145 pounds, it was Rocco Ferraro of McGuffey. He won the title. A couple of big wins for Rocco. He beat Michael Zakar of Thomas Jefferson 3-1 in the semifinals, and then beat Chris Beatty of Chartiers Valley in overtime to win it all. Solid tournament.
Yeah, and those Chartiers Valley guys, coming up short in the finals, losing in sudden victory, but clearly battling. And yeah, I thought Rocco had a good tournament. I think he's peaking this year. I think he's wrestling really well throughout the season. I think most of those McGuffey guys are.
152 pounds. It was won by Steubenville's Aaron Ferguson. 160 pounds. Brendan Finnerty of Thomas Jefferson, he won the title. He beat Shane Kemper of Burgestown by major decision in the semis before beating Davion Say of Grove City in the finals. 170, Brian Finnerty of Thomas Jefferson, he won the title, and he had some big wins as well. Beat Murat Zinaleov of Chartiers Valley in the quarters by major. He beat DJ Slovic of Burgestown, who's back in the lineup for the Blue Devils. He beats him by major before winning in the finals over Brandon Kinney of Steubenville.
Yeah, it's nice to see DJ Slovic back in the lineup there, especially when we're talking about the team race. But both Finnertys from TJ wrestled well.
Nick Whittington of Keystone Oaks finishes in second place at 182, 195 pounds. It was Ethan Kane of Elizabeth Forward finishing in second place. 220 pounds, it was Josh Sarasnik from Chartiers Valley. He wins the title over Zeb Rubaker of West Middlesex. And 285 pounds, Riley Kemper of Burgestown. Another impressive tournament, 4 falls to win the title.
Yeah, he's the anchor there, that Burgestown team, and man, he's wrestling well. And I'm excited to see Burgestown in the team postseason. Yeah,
no doubt about it. Another solid tournament for Burgestown. It's going to be interesting in AA. We talk about who's going to challenge Burrell, and the news that PA Power broke last week, but we didn't get a chance to talk about it on the show. Quaker Valley is going to get a transfer coming in.
Yeah, Hunter Robeson from Jenner McLean was a state qualifier last year. He's a very solid wrestler. And he's that Quaker Valley now, and that's huge for them. That's a team that we kind of talked about earlier on, and can they surprise a few teams? And I think they legitimately could, just by the fact that they have so much strength, especially down those lightweights. With Ritchie as well, Logan Ritchie, and then of course you have Connor Redinger kind of anchoring the middle to upper weights. So yeah, I think it definitely adds more firepower to Quaker Valley.
Will he be eligible to wrestle in a team tournament?
As far as I'm told, yes. Unless something's changed, I believe he is.
So that'll be a big part. Obviously, we talked about Burgestown being one of those teams. Ken McGuffey be in that mix as well. And now you look at Quaker Valley, a team who pulled a couple upsets too. So it should be interesting to see how it finishes out here for Burgestown, as well as Quaker Valley and the others, as we always talk about Burrell. Another tournament from this past weekend was the Winner's Choice Tournament. Waynesburg as well as Peters Township both at this tournament. And Waynesburg was the team champion there among over 50 schools. Mac Church finishes in first place there in this tournament, as does Cole Hammett, Wyatt Henson, and name not in there is Rocco Welsh. He had the injury default out.
Yeah, and the weight that was won was Bryce Wilkes, and Rocco, he had to injury default out, so no word in terms of how serious it is. I think it is precautionary. But Waynesburg just dominated this tournament, 295 points. Second place was Fairmont, and there was 167 points. So, as you mentioned, it was a very dominating performance for Waynesburg. I think I think as long as Rocco is healthy, I think they're starting to trend upwards in the team tournament. When you have Kane and Mack and Kiski losing two big guys up top, I think Waynesburg's starting to really come together as a team. Mac Church beat a tough Matt Dolan in the finals, and also Bryce Wilkes, I thought, had a good tournament. Cole Hammett wins a title, so is Wyatt Henson. Wyatt Henson pinned Will Cale in the finals. Colton Stone King was second at 145, and Luca Augustine returns to the lineup, and he loses in the finals to John Martin Best from Parkersburg. If you remember him, we saw him at POWERade. He won the POWERade title, so good showing by Luca. And there was a couple other guys that impressed me. Noah Tustin from Waynesburg at 195. He was able to get second. Donovan McMillan, he wins by tech fall in the finals at 182 pounds, man. This guy is fun to watch. You got to watch out for him, man. All the guys that are on the east side of the state that don't really know about him, they're in for a rude awakening when he steps on the mat. I think he's going to cause some issues there. 152, Nate Stevenson takes third. Ryan Howard from Waynesburg takes third at 220. Very good showing for him. So, again, I think Waynesburg is peaking at the right time in terms of getting guys healthy. Hopefully Rocco Welsh is healthy for them, because that obviously is a game changer.
Yeah, you look at this tournament overall, and really Waynesburg, if you weren't in the finals, they were definitely finishing third, even fourth
place.
Worst,
yeah, Eli Mackel finished fourth. Yeah, everybody.
Everybody did really well in this tournament. A guy who's done really well in the past couple weeks' tournaments, Kurtis Phipps of Norwin, and he's kind of to join us on the show. Kurtis, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Kurtis, I wanted to go back first off to earlier in the season. Obviously, you had a lot of injuries last year to close out the year, so you didn't get a lot of wrestling time in during the summertime. Just want to talk a little bit about how your off season was maybe a little bit different this past off season than it was in other off seasons in the past.
Yeah, this off season was a lot different. Instead of actually training physically, I was more just rehabbing and getting mentally strong and knowing that I'm going to come back from this stronger than I was, hopefully. And that's helped me mentally this year coming in.
Yeah, how much of a difference do you think that has made this year?
I think, when I came into this season, I've had a whole different mentality of how I'm going to take it. I know how it feels to come, if you're heartbroken at states. I know how it feels to win. And I'm just coming and just trying to wrestle this year and keep putting up points, and I'm not really worried about wins and losses this year, which is making me wrestle a lot different than ever before.
And you look at the POWERade tournament, a tournament where you had the opportunity to win a third championship. Talk a little bit about that tournament. I know it didn't finish the way you would have hoped in a tight bout, but talk a little about your lead up to the finals. You wrestled really well throughout. Did you just feel like you were in the groove?
Yeah, I feel like I wrestled pretty good throughout. I just kept trying to put up points on my feet and get off the bottom and just score in every position. And in every match, I was able to get a takedown at some point up to that point, including the finals, and I was getting off the bottom. So those were making me happy, giving me opportunities to score, and that's all I can ask for is just keep getting opportunities to go at them.
I know you tried to go in the finals against Nick Bouzakis after the slam. Talk a little bit about what happened there and what transpired. Did they try to I know they tried to see if they could get you to go, but talk a little bit about what transpired there during that time.
It was just strange. I went down, and I mean, it was crazy in the moment. I didn't know exactly what happened at first. It was just kind of crazy, but I felt fine. I just wanted to keep wrestling. But they had a trainer come out originally and give me an inspection, and I could tell them I was ready to go. And then they brought a regular doctor out with 20 seconds left in the recovery time, which didn't make any sense to me. And I guess the doctor said he couldn't get a full check for concussions in time, I guess. But I don't know. I kept trying to wrestle, and it was just unfortunate they wouldn't let me in time soon.
And Kurtis, did that kind of make it kind of bittersweet for you to win your third POWERade title? Was that? I mean, I feel like you probably couldn't really celebrate, but you still had to be pretty happy with the way things turned out.
I was just happy I got myself into that position. I mean, I wrestled good throughout the tournament to try and get there, and I felt like I was battling with them pretty tough to that point, and it kind of sucked. I mean, I was really upset afterwards originally, but we talked about it with the coaching staff, and I mean, you just got to be happy that I'll say that I was the 20th, whoever was the 20th champion to do that 3 times. So it was pretty cool to be able to say that overall.
Now, the next week, then, you had the Westmoreland County Tournament. That was also kind of a funny match because you end up pinning him defensively. Talk about that match and, what you felt you did well and what you can improve upon.
In that match, I didn't feel like I did as great with getting my offense going and stuff. It was just one of those matches. We wrestled a lot in practice, and because we both go to the same club and stuff. So we knew each other, and in the end, I knew it was going to be a scrap, and it was going to be because I know the way he wrestles, he knows the way I wrestle, and I just had to get the points when I could, and I got into a crazy scramble, and I caught him there, and I was able to hold it, so it was pretty cool. And I'm excited to get that matchup again and keep working and see how it goes.
Now talk about the rest of the season for you because you obviously finished as a runner-up twice at the state tournament. I know that's not a place you want to finish again. What's going to be different this year as a senior going into Hershey as opposed to the last 2 years that's going to hopefully propel you to the top of the podium?
As I said earlier, it just seems more of a mentality. I know I've wrestled there. I know what it feels like, and I'm just not afraid of what happens. So I'm just going to try and go out there, open up, and just keep scoring points and pushing the pace. And hopefully that can win me the state title. And I'm just going to have some fun my last year of high school.
And obviously after high school, you're going to be going to Bucknell where your brother Drew is right now. How excited are you to end up at Bucknell and get started at your college career?
I'm really excited to go there. It was awesome being able to know all the guys already going in and being able to experience what they're going through right now, and they're on the rise with the team. And I'm excited to step in there and hopefully push myself and get into a lineup and scrap in college. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to get the hard education as well and come out there with a great degree.
Yeah, and it seems like Bucknell has a nice little pipeline to Westmoreland County. You got obviously your brother, but then a couple Kiski area guys, Noah Levitt and Darren Miller. Did that help the fact that you were familiar, obviously, with your brother being there, but having some other guys from your area?
Yeah, it always helps knowing that there's other guys that I've been around, hung out with, going there. It makes it more comfortable, I feel. And I thought it was especially exciting getting Darren this year because I know me and him can scrap in college and only make each other better. And there's a couple other guys coming in this next year that are going to be really tough. So I think as a team, we're just going to keep going up at Bucknell, and hopefully we can win some matches and maybe get in the rankings while I'm there.
Speaking of teams, Norwin, a couple of big wins for you guys, Penn Trafford as well as Franklin Regional. How you guys feeling as a team? I know right now the talk's been about the top 3 or 4 teams with Seneca Valley, Cannon McMillan, Kiski. But what is it going to take for Norwin to get into that mix? And can you guys pull some upsets here in the WPIAL tournament?
But yeah, Norwin has a lot of solid kids that people don't even realize. As I feel and wrestling out in practice, the kids just keep getting better and better. This is all we can ask for in Norwin, and we have a scrappy team. I think, as long as we win Wednesday night, we secure a spot in the playoffs, which is exciting for the second straight year. And I'm just hoping we can go out there and scrap. I think we can push any team to the brink, honestly. Our guys go out there and wrestle, and we have some really talented guys right now. I think we can pull some upsets for sure.
Well, best of luck as you head into the team portion here and finish things off, and then obviously get into the individual side where you'll be looking to try to get state gold. And we really appreciate you joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me. Great to talk.
Thanks, Curtis.
I'd like to thank Kurtis Phipps for joining us on the show. Let's look at some tournaments coming up this weekend. The big one for the WPIAL featuring most of the schools, the Allegheny County Wrestling Tournament. The seeds are out for the tournament, and we mentioned his name, Hunter Robinson of Quaker Valley. He is the number 1 seed going in at 106.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good test for him. And, of course, you have Nick Gorman from North Allegheny. He's the 4th seed. I got to scratch my head at that a little bit. I don't think Gorman's probably a 4th seed here. So that means that if the seeds hold, he will end up wrestling Hunter Robinson in the semifinals. But Anthony Ferrero from Pine Richlands here as well. He's a 3rd seed. So I think it's Gorman and Robeson. I think those are the two top guys here. But I think a guy like Ferrero is obviously going to battle.
I think Chase Brandenburg as well from Carleton. He's been wrestling really well. He could have made some noise too, but they're all in the top half. He's the 5th seed. So I've always wondered about some of these seeds in Allegheny County. Because I think they struggle with the City League, right? Because they're part of the Allegheny County tournaments. They don't know where to seed some of these kids. So Taylor Alderdice's Jacob Goldberg gets a number 2 seed, but Gorman and Brandenburg probably should have been ahead of him. 113 pounds, Vince Citrano. Plum, you've been talking about him a lot, and he's the number 1.
Yeah, definitely been talking about him. I think he's wrestled well this season. Tyler Diggins is here as well from Moon. A guy we mentioned, Logan Ritchie from Quaker Valley. He's also here as the 4th seed. So I think Citrano and Ritchie and Diggins are probably going to be the ones battling here. 120,
Joey Fisher and Dylan Coy of North Allegheny, 1-2 on a collision course for one another.
Yeah, for sure. But, you got Kyvon Grace from Moon here as well, Bryce Rodriguez from Carleton, and even Wevin Whiteside from Gateway. I thought he's been wrestling really well. We saw him at the Surge, and he's been doing well since then. But Joey Fisher and Dylan Coy, I'd love to see those two wrestle in the finals.
126 pounds, Ryan Michaels of Elizabeth Forward. He is your top seed in this one. Number 10 seed, Dylan Evans of Chartiers Valley.
Yeah, we could potentially see a rematch here, and I think Dylan Evans is obviously a guy to keep an eye on here. Same with Zach Wright from Hampton. He's had a good year. Jesse Gelato from West Mifflin, also a guy not to look past, but I think we could see a Dylan Evans and Ryan Michaels rematch.
Yeah, Evans should. He'll feed into the number 2 seed, and then he would face Zach Wright in the semifinals before taking on Michaels in the final. 132, Keelan Laffey of Pine Richland is your top seed here in this weight.
Yeah, and you got Troy Jacobson from Taylor Alderdice, probably the best wrestler that Alderdice has. Drake Burford from Highlands, I think he's going to be in the mix there. And Jeremy McPherson from North Hills, I think they could all. But I think Keelan Laffey is obviously the top guy here.
138, Sam Hilligus of North Hills, your top seed. Max Stediford, off of his big tournament this past weekend, comes in at number 2.
Yeah, and you got some familiar names here with Eddie Heen from Carleton, Parker Laura from Bethel Park, and Tony Salopek from West Mifflin. So a good weight class here. And then throw in Cale Bacaizo, who we just talked about, had a great tournament. So obviously Sammy Hilligus is the top guy here, but it's like who's going to challenge him? Stedford coming off a good tournament. So who's going to challenge him?
Yeah, Bacaizo and Stediford would meet in the quarterfinals as a 2-7 seed. That should be a good one. 145, Nate Lucas of Pine Richland, your top seed. Mikey Sakar of Thomas Jefferson comes in number 2. Jackson Gray of Mount Lebanon, number 3.
Yeah, I really like this weight class because you have 4 guys that I think are very close with one another, and that's Lucas, Zakor, Gray, and Junko. I think Freddie Junko is going to push Lucas if they make it to the semis, and same with Zakor and Gray. I think Gray, Gray's had an up-and-down year, but I think Gray is a guy to definitely keep an eye on here. And don't look past Chartiers Valley's Chris Beatty, as we talked about him a little bit earlier.
152, Connor Redinger of Quaker Valley, number 1. Cole Spencer of Pine Richland, number 2. That should be a fun final if Grant McKay of North Allegheny doesn't make things interesting.
It's probably 3 of the toughest guys here in one weight class are all at 152. Connor Redinger, obviously the guy we talked about, ranked 2nd in the state from Quaker Valley. But Cole Spencer, man, he's been just unbelievable this year. He's, we talked about that sophomore slump that he had. He's really turned it up in his junior year, committed to Penn. And then, of course, you have that freshman phenom and Grant McKay. I love these 3 guys. I think I'd like to throw them all in a round robin, have them wrestle 2 or 3 times.
I think that'd be a lot better off. I think all the coaches would, and the fans would like that too. 160, Brendan Finnerty of Thomas Jefferson off a solid tournament. He's the number 1 seed.
Yeah, not a lot of depth here. Gavin Rosso from West Mifflin, probably the second best guy in the weight class here. So not a lot of depth here at 160.
170, Max Stout of Mount Lebanon, your number 1. Eli Brinsky of South Fayette, your number 2. Solid studs. Tyler Kokak of Hampton is 3. Brian Finnerty of Thomas Jefferson, number 4. 4 solid guys here.
And then you throw in Frank Guzzi from West Mifflin at the 9th seed. Max Stout, for sure, is a guy who has impressed me throughout this season. Eli Brinsky's undefeated. Recently got his 100th victory. I'd like to see how he does. And Tyler Kokak, as you mentioned, is a senior. One-time state qualifier, so I think this is going to be an interesting weight class to see where it all shakes out. But I think Stout's the guy everyone's aiming for.
182, Patrick Kutchember of Quaker Valley comes in at number 1. Justin Hart of Hampton, number 2.
Yeah, Justin Hart drops down from 95 to 182. 95 was so crowded in the WPIAL, and he comes down to a weight class where, we see Garrett Ninehouse, but, I think he can definitely make a mark here at 182. This will be a good test for him down at this weight.
195, Luke Stout of Mount Lebanon, your number 1. Luke Montgomery of Bethel Park, number 2. NA's Nick Marcinelli, number 3.
Yeah, and could be a third time we see Montgomery and Stout. Stout won twice already, including one time in the Eastern Area Final. So, and this is a good time for Nick Marcinelli to see where he stacks up with two of the state's top wrestlers at 195.
220, Damon Thompson of North Hills, off a solid POWERade performance. He's coming in at number 1.
Yeah, great tournament by Thompson down in POWERade, but he's going to have some good competition. Eddie Farrell from Fox Chapel could be in the mix there, and Donovan Kutchember from Quaker Valley, he comes in at the 10th seed. Andy Mellinger, keep an eye on him from McKeesport, and Josh Sarasnik, guy we just talked about. I think this is a little bit sneaky good, this weight. I think there's going to be I think we're going to have a lot of questions answered.
Yeah, some upsets for sure, as somebody like Kutchember feeding into Farrell pretty quickly into the quarterfinals. 285 pounds, Ben Graff from North Allegheny. He is your number 1.
Yeah, and this is an interesting weight class because you have Quentin Franklin from South Fayette, guy who got a really, really late start to the season. He's only been back for a few weeks. He's a returning state qualifier. He's your 4 seed. So we could see a Graft and Franklin semifinal match, which I think is a really big-time match. And then Dawson Dietz, a guy I wouldn't look past either. He's at WPIAL. When you look at the WPIAL heavyweights, you got to be impressed with the way the depth is there.
Yeah, that semifinal could have been really the final at 285. Another big tournament coming up this upcoming weekend is Escape the Rock. Not as many WPIAL schools as in the past, though. There's only one WPIAL school will be wrestling, and that is Connellsville. Fraser usually goes to this one, but Thane Lawrence not in the lineup, so he will not be going. Were you, I guess, first off, what's the update on Thane Lawrence, and then let's talk a little bit about Escape the Rock.
There's no real update on Thane. I just, the fact that the longer he's out, I think the more worrisome it is, whether he ends up getting surgery or not. And is out. I'm sure the coaches at Lehigh are saying, hey, man, just, get the surgery and fix what's wrong with you and then, come in and start training at Lehigh. But obviously I'm sure he wants to win a third state title. So I don't know. I don't know if we'll see him. But, obviously being selfish, I hope we do.
Right.
But I can't say for sure.
Even with an injured shoulder, he's still one of the best in the state.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely one of the best in the state, one of the best in the nation. So it's a huge hit to Pennsylvania. But we look at 160. You got a couple good studs there as well. You got Clayton Ulrey from Lower Dauphin and Andrew Siniglia from Notre Dame, Green Pond, both 2 top ranked guys. So definitely would miss Thane, but we got depth at Pennsylvania.
So Connellsville coming into this one at the Escape the Rock. What can they look forward to?
Chad Ozias at 106 pounds is the 8th seed. I think it's a pretty deep weight class, so it'll be interesting to see how he fares. Mason Prinky is the 6th seed at 113, a returning state medalist. I thought he got a favorable seed. He's ahead of 2 state medalists that he finished ahead of last year, but Prinky's had a kind of an up-and-down year for Connellsville. He's ahead of Braxton Appella Fries from Easton, and same with Jay Maladano from Boyertown, same with Dante Frenzy. So 113 is pretty stacked, though. Overall, you look at some of the other Connellsville guys here, I'm kind of surprised to see, but Jared Kessler is not at 138. He's at 145 pounds, and he's a 7th seed there. And it's really heavy weight class because you have Cole Handelvik from Becca, who dropped from 152. You have Jagger Condomiti, and then Anthony Petrocelli from O&J Roberts. So very heavy weight class. If Jared Kessler's staying at 45, this is going to be a good time for him to kind of figure out, if this is the right weight class for him. Because we saw him at 38 for POWERade, but, I don't know. Maybe he stays at 45.
Very interesting, especially now that you have the 2 pounds. That you would go down, that you would actually go up. Most guys are going down and take advantage of that.
Yeah, no, I mean, but we don't know what he's only a sophomore, so I'm sure he's growing. It's hard to maintain that weight, especially if your body's growing, right? So, Casper Hinckley from Connellsville is the 8th seed at 160. I think that's a good seed for him. And at 182, you have Dakota Rogers as the 12th seed. That's a pretty 82 is pretty loaded, but man, that's a pretty low. I thought he could have been a little bit higher at 182 pounds. But really, I mean, as you mentioned, without a lot of WPIAL schools here, we've seen Hempfield here, Cannon Mac here, Fraser, as you mentioned. So I'll be there, but I'll be there watching a lot of other schools.
Yeah,
so,
covering the state. At Belle Vernon as well is always big here at Escape the Rock throughout their peak years. Also coming up this weekend, the Brookville Ultimate Duels. Always a lot of fun for to see that play out. You see Burrell taking on a number of the high-end AA schools, so you really get a good picture of where they're at as far as the state goes.
Yeah, I know Coach Shields loves having his guys up there. I remember one year they went up with like half the guys because everyone was injured and banged up, and they didn't do so well, but then they end up doing really well at the state tournament, so it's a good test for them. Reynolds will be there, and Reynolds actually just wrestled a WPIAL school over the weekend. They wrestled Seneca Valley, and that was a really good dual meet. It was a 38-20 victory for Reynolds. So we talked about how good Seneca Valley is. Reynolds is still Reynolds. They've won 3 straight state championships, right?
Yep.
They're going for their 4th. And I learned my lesson. I'm not betting against them.
It's like betting against Burrell, right?
Yeah, you don't do it. Until someone knocks them off, I can't go against them. A couple really interesting matches here. Tyler Chappell from Seneca Valley beats a tough Kane Kettering from Reynolds at 106 pounds. Gary Steen majors Hunter Swedish. Dylan Chappell majors Cole Bayless. But a couple matches I thought could have went either way. Caden Berger at 138. He decisioned Chan Shear 6-4. And then you look at 160, Drew Vlasnik bumps up, and he beats Jordan DeCarmen by major decision 14-5. That's a really big win for him. So, and then Cole Toy from Reynolds decisioned Liam Volk-Kloss from Seneca Valley 5-4. So definitely a lot of back-and-forth matches here. But, man, Reynolds is tough.
Seneca Valley, though, without AHR.
Right. They were without, I mean, I guess that goes without saying that they were without their probably best wrestler here, being without AHR. That obviously changes things at 132 pounds. But, man, Reynolds is tough.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Speaking of Burrell, they actually had a match with Kiski. Always fun to see that match every year. Kiski ended up beating Burrell 38-23. A couple of notable matchups in this one. Most importantly, Sammy Starr knocks off AJ Corrado 1-0.
Second time this year, man. Sammy Starr is the real deal. He's got to be feeling pretty good the way he's wrestling. But this duel was closer than I think some people expected. Right? I don't know if it's that everyone thought Kiski was run away with it, but Burrell's tough, man. Those guys battle. Those guys hung in there. They didn't give up bonus points at some weight classes. There was a couple swing matches there. But I think this could go several different ways depending on where the matchups are. And, of course, they gave up a forfeit at 220, so that changes things as well. But a lot of good matches here, individual, battles within the war, if you will. So good to see Burrell. I think Burrell's going to have a great postseason.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I know they have state aspirations, but at the end of the day, they still just want to keep that WPIAL championship trend going. And we talk about every week, it's like which team's could knock them off, but at this point you can't bet against Burrell because looking at even that Kiski matchup, they did forfeit 220, but that was the Braden Roskowski, so they may not have they probably could fill that opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. Really agree with you there. And it's hard to believe that it's that time, but man, it's exciting because you can't bet against Burrell, you can't bet against Reynolds. I can't wait to see what happens, not only in the WPIAL, but also the state.
Yeah, so next week we'll have a lot of we'll have the tournaments to recap. The Allegheny County, we'll talk a little bit about Escape the Rock, but also the Brookville Ultimate Duels, just to tell you where AA is at state-wise. But then we'll be talking about the section championships, and we'll have a team tournament to preview as well.
Yeah.
Crazy to think, but that's what's going to be coming up. So it's all here. It's just a week away.
Yeah, man. Excited. I can't wait to, these shows are just going to get more and more intense and more exciting because, we're going to be talking about matchups. We're going to be talking about potential injuries and who's in the lineup, who's out of the lineup. We've got a lot of question marks in the WPIAL, especially in AAA. Who's healthy? Is Rocco Welsh healthy? Is Giomar Ramos, Stone Joseph? Are those guys coming back? Because if not, that changes the complexity and that changes the dynamics of a lot of these dual meets. Seneca Valley, same thing. Like, where are they going to fall in? And I think it's gonna be very interesting because I don't think there's not that one team that everyone's kind of gunning for. It's like some very evenly matched teams going at it, so it makes it a little bit exciting.
Oh, no doubt about it. Without that dominant team, should be really interesting. Even if Borough in AA is that dominant team, two and three is still anybody's guess.
Great.
So it could go any number of ways, just like it did last year, when we thought going in probably totally different picks and Freedom and Best Center coming out of it.
Yeah,
so.
For sure. Again, it's very exciting, right? I hope I'm there for it because I'll be flying back from Iowa. I'm going to Iowa, Penn State. Can't miss that.
Yeah, can't
miss that. It's Pennsylvania Midwest versus Penn State. Iowa has more Pennsylvania wrestlers on it than Penn State, so really going there to cover just the PA guys. But yeah, hopefully I'll be back in time. Hopefully my flight comes in and I get to make it to Canon-Mac for the team tournament.
Should be a lot of fun to watch, and once we get the brackets come out, we'll be breaking them down for you by each individual match. I want to thank Kurtis Phipps for joining us on the show today. From a broadcast partner, Jeff Upson, I'm Greg Warnock. Thanks for listening in to WarUp on a WPIAL.